Why the 50-30-20 finance split doesn't work. So when you're trying to find ways to be better with your money, often you tend to come across this idea of splitting up your paycheck. 50% into essentials/needs such as shelter, food, utilities, 30% into wants such as a holiday fund, new clothes, a new game, etc., and 20% into a savings account/investments. It's not a bad strategy. Certainly it's digestible and easy to follow, but I don't follow this and I never have. And in this video, I'll go over why. So let's use my income as an example. After tax, I earn around $2,048.31 per fortnight from my office job, and I earn around $495.85 per week from my supermarket job. For my example, I'll use a monthly budget since I doubt people have utility bills each week. And maybe your mortgage/rent is paid monthly, not weekly, although I guess some utilities bills are once per quarter. But that's stretching out the time frame a little too far, and I feel monthly is an easier example to use. So $2,048, let's just round down for simplicity's sake, times 2, since there's 2 fortnights per month. That gives me $4,096 per month in after-tax/after retirement fund injections into my bank account to do with as I want. Then for the supermarket, $496, again, rounding, but this time we round up, times 4, since there's usually 4 weeks in a month. Obviously there's 52 weeks per year, but if you do the 4 weeks times 12 months, you only end up with 48 weeks. We'll just use a 4-week pay period for simplicity's sake. 4 weeks times $496 per week equals $1,984 per month from my supermarket job. Now, these figures might confuse my regular viewers since I've made this video, as well as talking about my finances in my Sorta Life Progress related videos. This is my after-tax, after-retirement fund payment money. I didn't lie, I do earn around $111,000 per year at the moment between my 2 jobs, but that includes before tax and retirement fund injections, so it's not like you can just do the math of $111,000 divided by 12 months equals $9,250 in cash per month. Nope. Take into account tax and retirement fund money. I pay a little more tax than usual, or than you're meant to, at my office job due to my university debt, due to the way you repay your student loans here in Australia, and I don't pay as much tax as I should at my supermarket job. If you want to know why, I talk about it in this video, but it's a cash flow tactic I've implemented with my paychecks. So anyway, each month I roughly have $4,096 in spare cash from the office job, my accounting job, and $1,984 per month from my part-time weekend supermarket job. That leaves me with $6,080 in cash per month. Now, applying the 50-30-20 rule, this would mean $3,040 of my income goes to my needs, $1,284 of my income goes to my wants, $1,216 of my income goes to my savings/future. Now let's talk about why these don't apply to my finances. Firstly, I don't have a mortgage and I live at home with my parents, rent-free, just like how I live rent-free in the minds of the haters. Now, I've automatically just pissed off some people, since not everyone has the luxury of living with their parents rent-free. Many people are forced to move out of home. However, I'll mention 2 things on that point. 1, my parents live in a small country town. It's ages away from anything, so I'm paying for this in terms of the time cost, petrol, and wear and tear on my car. It takes me an hour to get to work, and it takes me 35 minutes to get to the nearby city from home, which is where any major shopping complexes, restaurants, social activities, etc. are held. This wasn't just the case in recent times, it's been like this my whole life. I've literally lost months of my life in my car/on the bus travelling, a loss that city people/local suburban people never had to incur. Even if you cut my travel time to work by half, to 30 minutes each way, which is still quite a distance, you'd still save 5 hours of your life per week instead of spending it in traffic/in your car. I could get so much done if I had an extra 5 hours per week. That's like almost an extra YouTube video, or a good amount of study. But case in point, Yes, I live rent-free, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I pay for it with time. I know people who rent nearby their university or nearby their work. Strategic moves such as this are fine. As I said, I'm paying my rent via my time, as opposed to money, but some people move out for a terrible reason, which I'll go over now. Secondly, I know some people are forced out of their home and have to pay rent to have shelter, but I know quite a few people who moved out of their parents' place just because they wanted to live on their own. Or mingle around. No other reason. They could have very well stayed at home. Now, I can't recall the exact video, but Aaron Clary ranted about it in one video. The crux of it was, young dudes move out of home, rent, so they can get bitches. Like, I don't know about you guys, but my mum is vehemently against the hookup culture thing, so no chance could I bring bitches back to my crib. Plus, it's too far away anyway. Ain't no hoes in the club trying to travel 35 plus minutes to get back to someone's place. I had a mate, on the other hand, who'd bring home random girls to his home all the time. Like, they'd meet his parents and everything. Nah, couldn't be my parents. I doubt Dad would care, but having an Asian mum? No chance, son. And not that I much care for that debauchery anyway, as you may have guessed from this video. Anyway, obviously having your own place makes it easier to procreate with women. But is this worth it? You're paying rent, which I don't know your circumstances, but let's say it's even $300 per week. Is that cheap pussy / cheap dick really worth $300 per week? For me? Hell no. I'd rather have 0 bitches and 3 money rather than 3 bitches and 0 money.
Oh, I have 3 kids and no money. Why can't I have no kids and 3 money?
Obviously, if you moved out because you had to, this scenario doesn't apply to you, but I know some boys and girls who moved out for this reason. Cheap hoes and cheap fuckboys. I wonder if they think it'll be worth it by the time they turn 33 and still aren't in the housing market. So anyway, that's another thing to consider. Yes, I don't pay rent, maybe you do, but you got some bitches in exchange. Was it worth it? Only you can decide that for yourself, but again, yes, I don't pay rent, but I paid for this free rent by losing out on time and hoes. Anyway, without a mortgage / rent, I have $3,000-ish to spend on groceries and utilities. I also don't pay utilities, which my parents are fine with, but I'm not really home a lot anyway. I'm at work / the gym / in my car driving more than 70 hours per week, so I make a minimal dent on the utilities bill. It's my other siblings that rack that thing up. Even so, my portion of this wouldn't be much anyway, but currently, no utilities bills for me. Obviously, this will change once my house is built, but by then, I'll also have equity growth and rental income helping me out. So without shelter costs and without utilities, I'm left with groceries and petrol. My petrol bill is around $100 per week. Told you I was paying for rent via petrol? Obviously, it's not as bad as the rent payments, but again, the time factor. I spend way more time in my car than most people. Of course, others spend lots of time traveling, but again, my free rent isn't all positives. So anyway, $100 per week on petrol. I save around $1.80-ish each time thanks to my staff discount from my supermarket job. Yay, worth it? ? But still $100-ish per week. As for my groceries, it depends, since sometimes I'll have stuff like my hair gel or face moisturizer, expenses / investments that I don't pay for every week, but I still do pay for. However, based on historical data, aka my grocery bills during 2023, I average somewhere around $60 per week in groceries. I made an entire video going over how cheap my diet is, so in most cases people will have a higher grocery bill, especially since I'm a single male, I don't pay for anyone else's food. So that's $160 per week in essentials, times 4 weeks equals $640 per month in needs. Meanwhile, this 50-30-20 budget has me allocating $3,000 to this. Yes, this will change when it comes time for me to have my mortgage, but as we will go over shortly, I don't even mind if my mortgage repayments eat up more than 50% of my monthly income, since the other 50% of my income doesn't need to be split as the 50-30-20 rule states. Plus, as regulars know, I am potentially going to get another raise at my accounting job in the middle of 2024, so these figures will hopefully be outdated, and I'll have even more disposable income. So next up, they say 30% of your income is on wants. And guess what I want? A house, a foot in the real estate market, to become a landlord. Pompous windbag-ass capitalist, so 30% of my income towards a house doesn't work. Jokes aside, of all my current expenses, there aren't that many that fall under the wants category. I pay for Apple storage, which is about $5 per month. I pay for YouTube Premium via the Argentinian peso, just use a VPN, reroute to Argentina, and pay for it from there. It saves me like $11 per month, as opposed to paying in Aussie dollars. I pay around $19 per week for my gym membership. I pay for CBD gummies, which are roughly $250 to $300 every few months. I suppose this is a want, but given the fact it helps me sleep, technically, under my rules, I'd consider this a need. But anyway, I pay around $54 per month for both of my phones, although I'll likely change one of these phone bills soon enough. And even then, I do need a phone, but generally phones fall under the wants category. Anyway, maybe there's a couple of other minor expenses, and you also have stuff like mechanic fees whenever your car needs a service, but no point budgeting this in since you never really know what it'll be. And plus, this wants category doesn't really factor in emergencies. That's what the 20 rule covers. There's also Botox and laser hair removal appointments, but I've already prepaid a lot of laser sessions, and Botox is around $400 every 3 to 4 months. So maybe $100 a month, let's say for this. I don't need it, but removing the visible wrinkles on my forehead does wonders for my appearance. Totally worth it, no sarcasm. Anyway, let's just say $250 a month on wants, as this includes portioning out CBD gummies and other random shit. The 50-30-20 rule has given me $1,824 to work with. Meanwhile, I'm only using $250-ish of that. Not even. So, if I followed this rule, I'd be forking out an extra $1,500 per month on other random shit. Now, this 30 rule doesn't apply to me, since I'm a very simplistic, cheap, minimalist dude. I grew up not having much at all, and as you can probably guess from the brand name, gamification of life, I treat my life as a video game anyway. I have no need for playing through a heap of video games, since I play a game every day. The game of my life. Going to work isn't a chore, it's me leveling up my career stat and my money stat. My study isn't something I have to do, it's an increase to the career stat. Gym isn't something I have to do to stay fit, it's a new stat I can level up. Checking out the world of the stock market/finance isn't a tedious chore, it is. To gain skills to make quick money later in life, it's a fun way to increase the investor stat, and by extension, the money stat. Working towards a house/checking out real estate info isn't a necessary part of becoming an adult/being a provider/drawing in a good woman. It's a fun stat level up. Watching assets you own increase in value, building out your overall asset portfolio in the game of life. Working on this brand isn't a chore, so I can one day escape the rat race. I have zero intentions of ever leaving my career path ever. It's a fun way to build the brand stat, build a brand name. The IRL grind is no different from grinding up your Pokemon's levels from battling wild Pokemon/other trainers, but instead battling other trainers. I battle with everyday life. So with all that said, the stuff I want generally can't be bought with more money. A lot of what I want generally has to be earned. In some cases, yes, earned with money, but a flat, basic, arbitrary rate of 30% isn't going to get me there. No video games/movies for me, my life is fun enough as is leveling up my IRL stats. No need for holidays, I don't have a desire to get away from my current life, especially since I'm building towards a life I don't need a holiday from. And plus, if I play my stats right, eventually I won't need to ever have to save up for a holiday. I'll have enough money flowing in to the point where I can just go whenever I want. Case in point, my personal wants can be covered with substantially less than 30% of my income, hence why this 30% rule for wants doesn't apply to me. Lastly, the 20% rule of 20% of your income going to investments/savings, basically everything I don't spend on petrol, groceries, phone bills, CBD gummies, moisturizer, my appearance, etc., goes into savings. I went over it in this video, but I saved $88,000 between the span of November/December 2021 and November/December 2023. and a lot of this time was on a lot lower income than I am now, as well as the fact I had other big expenses during that time. So I'm not sure what percentage of my income during that time was allocated to savings, but it was certainly a lot more than 20%. I've also slowly started injecting money into the stock market, not only because I see good buying opportunities now, but also because the fact I'll have more than enough money for my desired house deposit by the time I need it, so I can afford to risk some money in the markets. My ideal house deposit is around $130,000. I talked in some previous videos how I may not actually use this much of a deposit for my house, and instead use some of that to fund my second property, my investment property, but upon mulling over it, I think I might, because not only do I have a smaller loan, and not only do I get a better mortgage rate, but because I can just pluck this money back out at a later date anyway, since I'll need a buffer period between getting my first house and buying my second property, in which you can't pull out any equity of your first property for a certain time period anyway. So that is to say, I will need to save a good amount of money if I want this, but if I follow the 50-30-20 rule, this only gives me $1,216 per month to save. I'm about $25,000-ish away from $130,000 in savings at the moment. I'm about 6-ish months away from needing the loan from the bank. According to current forecasts, that may change, but case in point, I can't save $25,000 in the next 6 months following this arbitrary 50-30-20 rule, since saving $1,216 per month for 6 months only gives me $7,481. That's not quite $25,000. Also, while we are on the topic of 20% of your income goes into savings and investments, what are you saving/investing for? Retirement? If you're an employee in Australia, around 11% of your income already goes into your retirement fund anyway, which is a managed fund, which is an investment/saving vehicle. So in this case, you could just not even use the 20% rule since a good chunk of this is already covered. Eventually, this 11% will be 12% too. So if you're Aussie, part of the 20% of the 50-30-20 rule is already covered by you working. In a standard employee job, that is. If you're like self-employed, this doesn't happen. You have to put in that money yourself. And even so, is your objective to work for most of your life just so you can fund a life in the twilight years of your life? I'm not going to give a motivational speech on that, since that's what those stupid-ass entrepreneur, influencer pricks do to sell you on some bullshit course of becoming your own boss, or make 6 figures through day trading, or whatever. But I'd suggest finding a career you enjoy. There's plenty of good options out there. Some people cannot fathom sitting in an office all day. I enjoy it. I cannot fathom doing manual labor through a trade all day. Many others enjoy it. I also couldn't fathom teaching some other people's bratty, undisciplined children all day. Some people like it. I couldn't fathom being in a hospital with sick people all day and night. Some people like it, and they like shift work. Chances are there's a career for you. Only you can find that out for yourself. But you will need that stable, reliable, consistent source of income with rooms for upward progression. This way, not only do you not despise your existence since you're working in a field you like, or at the very least, you tolerate it, not hate it, but you also have extra money since you slowly become more skilled in your field, which is in demand in the economy/society, so you have more money to work with. So the 50-30-20 rule can be adjusted, since instead of having to allocate 50% of your income to your shelter costs, for example, now you're earning way more, and now only 35% of your income goes to shelter, for example. So you've got more than the 30% for a holiday, or more than 20% for your savings/retirement/whatever. So my suggestion, choose a career path with room for pay raises upwards. That way you don't have to adhere to such a strict arbitrary objective of how your income should be allocated. Also, if you are renting and you're allocating 50% of your income to this, as well as food and petrol, and you're only leaving 20% for it for savings/investments, would you be saving towards a house? Which by default would assume you're only saving 20% of your income for a house. Good luck with that. If you want to rent forever, that's fine, you do you. But depending on your country, the rental crisis is only going to get worse. You're at the mercy of your landlord perpetually raising rent. If you have skills in an in-demand career, then maybe you can perpetually keep up with rising rental costs. But if you don't have many skills, such as what is required at my part-time supermarket job, then you will eventually drown in these rent payments, as we've already seen around the globe. Now, yes, the cost of owning a home is going up alongside rent, since as houses get more expensive, the mortgage that the homeowners/landlords is higher/mortgage repayments are higher, along with higher interest rates. If you bought like 15 plus years ago, this doesn't apply to you, but if you made the mistake of being born after 1990, like me, then your repayments for a property are going to be super high. However, if you own the home/property, you benefit from the increased value in it. Very briefly, the extra value in the land/house/property can be used to buy more properties, which means now you have more rental income/another property that goes up in value. Or you can use that increased value in your house and just cash it out and do whatever with it. It's no different from a stock going up in value and you taking profits. If I buy a stock at $500 and it goes up to $600, I can pluck out the $100 in profit and do what I want with it, and I still have my initial investment of $500. If you take a loan to buy a house worth $500,000 and it goes up in value to $600,000, you can use this $100,000 for whatever you want. Now, banks in some cases don't let you use the entire $100,000 in profit, but maybe you use $80,000 or hell, even $50,000. Either way, that's a free $50,000 you got for essentially nothing. You just owned some property, and the real estate market did the work for you. Your loan repayments stay the same, regardless of how high the asset value goes up. Now, yes, in some cases there are bad property investments, but for the most part, property only goes up in value. It's just that, since you can take loans out for property, and there's more government factors supporting property prices, it's generally a safer bet for wealth. The same concept can apply to stocks. If you take out a loan to buy $500,000 worth of stocks, and that stock portfolio goes up to $600,000, you can pluck out this $100,000 in profits and do what you want with it. Your loan repayments stay the same, but generally you can't borrow as much from the bank for stuff like this, and the stock market is generally riskier since it's more volatile. And it's not as useful as a house. Like, regardless of the value of a house and whatnot, it's a place to live, it's shelter, whereas the primary purpose of owning a stock is for it to go up in value. Unless you only held a heap of stock to become an important shareholder, so you can have influence over a company via shareholder meetings, board of directors, etc. But even then, I'd imagine you only want the influence so the company can go in the right direction you want it to, that being up. So anyway, the 50-30-20 rule only gives you 20% of your income towards saving for a house, and as I mentioned before, generally renting forever isn't the most ideal situation. If you already own a house, then chances are the extra equity appreciation in your house can be used for other wants/investments, which are the 30-20 part of the rule, meaning you don't have to be as strict with your budget, since your home going up in value will allow you a pretty solid chunk of extra money, which could cover a couple of holidays, so no need to save 30% of your income towards this. On the other hand, if you're renting, eventually this is going to sting as the rental market continues to get worse. Do you really think the government is going to come to your rescue? I doubt it. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. I'm here to warn you of what I've seen coming in the financial data. Renters are going to get thrown under the bus in the coming years and beyond. So the way to avoid this is to become a homeowner. But have you seen home prices lately? I don't know what income you're on, but chances are saving only 20% of that towards a house/your own place isn't going to get you anywhere. So that's why the 50-30-20 rule doesn't work. It's a good concept to use temporarily, such as if you're studying at uni/doing your apprenticeship, etc. But you're only treading water doing this. You're not going to get anywhere with your finances. 20% of your income allocated to savings/investments, such as a house, simply isn't enough to get ahead. Unfortunately, sacrifices must be made to get ahead. 30% of your income for wants is rather excessive. If you want to live your best life, that's fine, you do you, Unfortunately, chances are you're going to be paying for that later down the track, as you'd be missing out on real estate and stocks appreciating in value. You'd have to buy in at a much more expensive price if you want to catch this train, rather than getting in earlier and riding the momentum up. You can circumnavigate this potential issue by picking an in-demand, highly skilled, higher paying career, meaning you'd be earning a lot more than you'd need to in the future, so you can get away with living your best life earlier. But the fact is, you're better off getting into assets earlier rather than later. I'm seeing this unfold before my very eyes in my personal life. Some people I know lived in the moment in their 20s, and now they have little hope of home ownership, since now they have too many responsibilities in their older years, so they can't dedicate much time to studying/working more, so their income is relatively stagnant. Now, they're perpetually at the mercy of landlords, who, in most cases, are unforgiving tyrants. That's life. I'm going to be the same when I inevitably become a landlord. If the market allows me to get away with rental increases, why wouldn't I take advantage of it? It's my asset after all. As cruel as it is, it's survival of the fittest, rule of the jungle. So to summarize, the 50-30-20 rule doesn't work. 50% of your income towards a mortgage would imply you have a home, and by extension, equity to play with, meaning you'd have an extra flush of cash available to you by extracting this equity, meaning you don't need to split 30% towards wants and 20% towards savings, since you'd already have a large buffer of that anyway. If 50% is going to rent, unless you want to be at the mercy of your landlord forever, you're going to need to save a lot more than 20% of your income if you want to get into the housing market. I know a lot of this has been centered around housing, but guess what? Housing is usually the biggest cost for most people. Of course, a concept revolved around finances/money is going to be debunked using the housing market. So, what are your thoughts on the 50-30-20 rule? Did you use it for a while? If you do follow this, can you let me know how it's gone for you? I really cannot fathom how this arbitrary rule gets people ahead in their finances. As I said before, it's a good temporary measure. Perhaps some people are really bad with their money and they need somewhere to start, but once you get the hang of it, you need to change. This 50-30-20 rule only keeps you treading water. It doesn't get you onto the lifeboat. Thanks for watching. That is all.